the research you did on the low birth rate in connection with materialism. Well, can you just explain that versus the desire for children?
Let's see. So there's been a lot of research showing that people who are materialistic tend to have more problems in their social relationships. They have either less friends or more dissatisfying, less satisfying relationships with friends and family and whatnot. So I kind of put together a few different lines of thought here, and then people who are happy, satisfied with their lives, okay, tend to have more favorable attitudes towards marriage and family. Right? If you're happy, if you're feeling good about your life, you're more willing to, yeah, I'd like to get married and have children. But if you're not, then these people tend to have higher incidences of materialism. Right? They base their happiness more on materialism. It's not entirely, we're not entirely certain which is the direction of causality. But it could be that people are miserable and therefore they turn to material goods to bring them some kind of happiness, or it could be that they went into material well-being first, which drove away their relationships because they just put the emphasis on not on people. But at any rate, these people have more negative attitudes towards marriage and family. Right? So the more materialistic you are, the worse you actually feel about life, and the less you want to get married and have children.
Right. Okay, that's a great point. I don't want to dwell on it because I don't think the audience is really that keen on the low birth rate, because clearly you're working against that. But this is leading up to the point about how important is money in attracting women when it comes to women being attracted to men?
That's a good question. From a personal standpoint or a research standpoint, or what are you asking?
Whichever you want to start with.
The research shows, and probably from a personal standpoint, maybe if you have an obscene amount of money, that'll probably help you, right?
Right.
But for most of us, that's not really the case, right? An obscene amount of money that you're willing to part with, that can help you, right? Because there are women who like that. They will respond as long as you keep the money flowing like that. But for most of us, that's not really an option. But the research shows that most women are looking for a guy who makes at least just a comfortable amount. Beyond a comfortable amount, sure, that's great, but it doesn't help you that much more, right? So as long as you can hold a job, a decent job, and you're earning some okay money, then most women find that enough. That's what the research shows.
Good news. So money doesn't help you as much as long as you have a minimum amount. They've shown a similar thing for happiness, right? The book by Kahneman I read recently was showing that something about $75,000 seemed to be the critical threshold beyond which self-reports of happiness did not increase.
Oh, right, in the U.S.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Yeah.
It used to be 60,000.
Yeah, it's getting higher.
Inflation.
It's always a little bit above what I'm actually making.
And the last thing I wanted to get to, and then we can just go into a Q&A, is this amazingly interesting research on this ovulatory cycle. And what this really important point that you mentioned, and I just glossed over, was that women who are ovulating are 3.5 more times likely to cheat on their, or seek other sexual mates than the one that they've paired with. So even if you're a really nice guy, and you play the nice guy strategy. So you go to a matchmaking service because you're a loser and you can't get a date. And the matchmaking service sets you up with a woman who wants to settle. So you settle equally, right? So you mutually settle for each other. And now you've started a life. Unconsciously, just when she's ovulating, it seems like the research would say that even if she's made you her husband, and even if you take care of her materially and provide the best nest for her, she will still feel this urge to look elsewhere?
Possibly.
Okay, tell me more about
this. This effect doesn't really, it's not accurate to say that it applies to everybody, every woman in every relationship, right? With all the guys here, but just with other guys, right? But it does happen. The research shows that it does happen a significant amount of time. That women, when they're ovulating, it's a time when they're, okay, so let's back up. Ideally, women want it all, right? Want a guy who's good looking, has the good genes, okay? Has the resources, right? Has the social dominance, respect, and confidence, which means that he'll always have resources. And then is really nice and good with children so that he can actually help along with the kids. But how many guys are out there who are like this, who have all these traits? Very few, right? Very few, other than David here. So that's why he's getting the big bucks here. But the thing is, so women who have, also if a woman finds a guy like this, right, he's not very loyal. These guys are not loyal because they can have anybody. So and you know what they do? They stray. So women, on average, most women have to kind of settle a little bit. It's kind of called settling down in some ways because they are actually settling. They're saying when it comes down to it, the looks or the income for a long-term mate, or this, the income, not income meaning a huge amount, a vast amount of money, as we just said, but just stability, right? They choose the stability over the looks, right? So, okay, I'll forget the good genes because this is going to be more important right now, right? To be able for a family to survive, I need a guy who's actually able to provide. At least this is evolutionary. I mean, in the modern world, it might not. A woman might be able to, get by just fine without a guy investing, but they still kind of have that psychology, that mentality. But this is where the dual strategy comes in. So then, later on, if there's the opportunity, and not all women, it's just a subset, when they're ovulating, they might be able to have sex with another guy, a better-looking guy, and get the good genes that way, right? And get this unsuspecting chump here, the husband, to invest in the children, right? But now guys are not that dumb. I mean, we pay attention. We get that. This is why we evolved jealousy mechanisms to prevent stuff like this from happening, right? And so guys actually become hyper vigilant, more vigilant around the time when the woman's ovulating. When your partner's ovulating, there's some studies showing that there's like more cell phone calls made to the partner.
So the man can actually detect. How does that work?
So there's some evidence that men can detect, and it's not.
There's scent?
Yeah, it could be through scent. It could be through cues that the woman is giving off and sending, and it's hard to say. I mean, like we found that when women are ovulating, they wear skimpier clothing. They buy sexier clothing and clothing accessories around that time when they're ovulating. So it could just be the way, and ovulating lap dancers make bigger tips when they're ovulating. Yeah, there's a study.
Is it anything that they do differently, or the men are responding just to the ovulatory cycle?
That's a good question. They didn't investigate the precise mechanism. But at any rate, so men somehow know one way or the other that their partners are ovulating, and we tend to protect them more and be more wanting to be close to them and keeping track of where they are around that time.
Okay. So the reason they would do that is because they're trying to maximize the quality of the genes that they pass on to their children.
Right.
So is this what I've heard as the sexy son hypothesis? Or that's something different?
That's related. It's related. It's very related. Do you want to go down that route, or
how long would that take to go?
I don't know, a couple minutes. But well, in a nutshell, it's basically that it's kind of related to that. But what women, the features that women find attractive in men can be passed. It might be adaptive simply to mate with someone with desirable features, because that person, your sons, if you have sons, will end up having those features, which will make him attractive, right? So it's a reproductively successful strategy, right? Whether or not this is, this is not really conscious, but it just happens that way, right? It's kind of like.
Right. So it seems like if it's about maximizing the quality of your genes, whether it's. So it just seems like it makes sense that you'd want to have your kids, the son, be also as in the best position in terms of survival and replication as possible. So you would cheat while you're ovulating, if you find a better option. So is the solution then, you're saying, just to be the best option at all time?
Well, ideally,
like ideally,
if you could, yes, of course.
Right.
Right.
So it's not just about variety. She doesn't just ovulate and just stray just for like try to slum it for a while and she gets bored. Like some men, they'll do it just for variety because they get bored, right? Because you were saying that the men that are the best option often cheat because they have so many options, so they just want to try everything like a buffet. But in the women's case, when the ovulation is happening, that cheating is not just because of, does it have anything to do with just pure variety?
Good question. So probably not. So, okay. You know, the proximate mechanism, meaning what you think, if you ask the people, they might say, oh, I'm bored, or, you know, oh, you know, this, I was so curious. But on average, it's probably the case that men are looking for that sexual variety because men have evolved to seek out sexual variety, to seek out copulations, sex with new women whenever they can. Whereas women are not necessarily doing that because reproductively it doesn't make any sense. If a woman has sex with 20 random guys in a night or over a week or whatever, or in a year, they can only become pregnant once, right? Now, we're not thinking about pregnancy in the modern world necessarily because of birth control and all that, but our psychological mechanisms are. So the woman wants to select the guy who's the best, right? And just have sex with that guy, not all of the random guys, you know, the male mentality, right? Because reproductively, it doesn't serve the woman's genes to go down that route. So, yes, so women in this case are looking for, you know, can produce offspring much slower, theoretically, much slower than men can. So they want to have a guy who's a partner who's able to invest resources in the offspring, if they have any, in her and the offspring, and then as a bonus to get the good genes. Right? And if she can't get that in one package, she may, generally not. I mean, you don't have to be too worried about it all the time, you know, to the point where you can't live your life.
Yeah, your phone goes, dee dee, oh, it's ovulating time.
But it does happen much more often around that time. Women will be on the lookout. They actually have more sexual fantasies around that time, but not of their current partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it seems like the only way that I can think. So this is very interesting research. Some of you might think that this is just over your head or just too abstract to apply. But this is the basis of everything that we're teaching here in the academy. So, for instance, the reason we're trying to make you more confident and more socially dominant, and to use humor, for instance, as the subject of the class just after this. And humor has also been shown to be adaptive. And just all these other traits that we're trying to develop in you, and the skills and conversation and all of that we're trying to develop, are actually to raise your mating intelligence, which raises your mate value, which means that when you do settle down with a wife, that the period when she's ovulating, she won't be tempted, like the other women 3.5 times more, to look for another guy because you're the best option. You're the best option you can be, and you're the best option you know of and she knows of. So this is actually the best way to just make yourself the best you can be on all of those scores, on all those factors, in order to have a happy long-term relationship. Right? So there's this myth out there that if a girl will just feel sorry for me, then she will love me. And I don't have to improve myself. I can just go to a matchmaking service and just find that one girl who will feel sorry for me. And through guilt and sympathy, she will stay with me for the rest of her life. However, you're completely ignoring the evolutionary basis of attraction. And it just stuns me that there's this amazing research going on that Norman is spearheading a lot of it. And it's happening right here in Singapore. And that we're still back in the pre-Darwin period, or even time of Darwin, the 1800s, where we still don't understand why this attraction occurs. And I think it should be just as common for a man to try to increase his mate value as it is for a woman to buy makeup. Those are doing the same things.
Now, women will, you know, also engage in some tactics of teasing, of leading people on, leading men to think, right? How many guys have ever thought that they were going to get somewhere with some woman, right? And then you're doing favors. You find yourself doing favors and doing this and investing, and then nothing happens, right? Because this is a tactic that women use. Not necessarily consciously, they're trying to manipulate you, but it's probably a subconscious thing, right? So women will potentially mislead and make you flirt with you, making you think that you know this is a sexual opportunity, whereas it's really not. And then men sometimes do the opposite. Men more often than women will say "I love you" when they don't actually mean it, because they're trying to suggest that they're investing, that they're really emotionally involved, when they're really after sexual relationships. So actually, before I forget, let me just mention a couple things.
Yes.
Okay. One, now, it doesn't mean that you'll never get a woman's compassion and her feeling sorry for you and all that, but you have to earn it. That's the whole thing, right? It's the you know, for better or for worse, if you're purely down, you know, if you're really down on your luck and you feel bad about yourself and you don't like yourself and you have no confidence and all this kind of stuff, they generally won't come to you, right? It's only when you're actually successful and debonair and all this and everything's going well for you, that's when they come to you, when you don't need them actually. But the thing is, that's when you need to get your woman, right? But then, you know, inevitably you can't always be operating at this level. So sometimes you might, you know, something might go wrong in your life or whatever. So at that point, once you've earned this woman's attention and love and whatnot, then she'll take care of you through those down phases. Right?
Yeah. That's a great caveat. I don't want to be too what's the word, cynical about love. It can carry you a long way, and that's a major part of. I mean, that's why you're entering into this to find that, and that happy. I mean, love is a major part of finding long-term happiness as well.
And the second thing I wanted to say is just from a you know, research scientist type of perspective, evolutionary psychology doesn't condone any behavior or anything like that. Just a kind of an overall disclaimer. Right? It's not, you know, these explanations aren't saying that necessarily that any one behavior or the other is morally good or it should, you know, be that way. Right? It just is. So what we look at is the science behind all this to try to explain things, not to morally justify taking advantage of women or women taking advantage of men or anything like that, but just to explain what's going on, and then what you choose to do with it is you know, up to you. Yeah. So also I want to throw that out there that in our discussion of the dark triad, we're not telling you to be narcissistic or Machiavellian or psychopathic. So just this is again just looking at it from an objective, neutral standpoint. And it's fascinating, the evolutionary psychology, the research on ethics, whether ethics is adaptive. But anyway, we don't want to. That's probably is. Yeah, probably is. Ethics evolved in social groups to keep people in line socially, potentially. Yes. Yeah, it's a very strong explanation for ethics.
Hey, if you like our video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and remember to like our Facebook fan page for videos only on Facebook.